selling 1 million books in 2021. All you need to know about advertising on Google. Coming up next on the Books in Heinessight 1 million books in 1 year challenge. Don't miss it.
Welcome to Books in Heinessight, the only podcast where hindsight is always 2020. And we explore the great books, works, and ideas of the century. Now, here's your host, teacher, and author, Matthew Heines.
Hello everyone, welcome to our first 2021 Books in Heinessight 1 million books in 1 year challenge. I'm author Matthew Heines, and I'm trying to sell 1 million books in 2021. Now, what I learn during the process, I'm going to pass on directly to my viewers on YouTube, my listeners on my Books in Heinessight podcast, and also the readers of my Heinessight blog. So you'll want to subscribe to all of them because each one is going to be a little bit different. For example, my blog might have a little bit of information not available in the podcast or YouTube video. So if you like this kind of content, if you're interested in selling books, if you're interested in publishing books, or if you're interested in reading books or finding good authors, this is the podcast for you. So please comment, like, share, and subscribe. All right, and while you're at it, might as well mention this since we're here. Check out one of my books at heinessight.com or Books in Heinessight, because there you'll be able to get my autographed editions in print form. I wanted to say print edition, but I was going to say edition again. All right, so today we're going to be talking about ads. I'm going to give you the logic behind internet ads in a second here, but the first thing I want you to understand is that while I am talking about ads, I'm going to be talking first of all about Google ads, and then I'm going to be talking about Amazon ads. If there are any other ads out there that you'd be interested in hearing about, I don't know what they are, so you're going to have to let me know what you'd be interested to hearing about, and I'll check them out. But I consider myself a pretty, I guess I'll say an expert on Google ads, not so much on Amazon ads. I've been with Google ads for a few years. Amazon ads are a little bit new to me, but that's going to be in another video. So today we're just going to be talking about Google ads. Now, why? Why would you want to have, or why would you want to spend money that you don't need to spend, so you think, on advertising? Well, let me put it to you like this. Go to a sporting event, like a professional sporting event, football game, right? Or soccer if you're in Europe or China or whatever. Go to a sporting event and look around you. Look at all the people, right? Well, when you write a book, think of yourself in that stadium, but multiply that stadium by about 30 to 50 times. And so you and your book or products are in that stadium with all of these millions of people, and all of these millions of people have books. The question is, what elevates you just a little bit higher so that you can be noticed by the book buying population? And the answer to that is, as far as I know, ads. You're going to have to advertise. Now, if you have a publishing house, if you are a well-known author, if you have some other thing going for you, then you might not have to do these things. But for the general population, for the run-of-the-mill crowd, you are going to have to do something to put yourself above everybody else. and there are lots of everybody else's, and every day with the China virus outbreak, there are more and more everybody else's coming online, putting products online, and competing with you. So how do you put yourself above the rest of the authors, the rest of the marketers, the rest of the publishers, the rest of the advertisers? It goes on and on. It's competitive, and it is getting to be brutal. So with that said, I hope you understand the concept that if you don't do something, or you have something going for you, then you're going to just wallow in the sea of anonymity unless you do something. And so what I'm going to talk to you today about one thing that you can do, and that is to take out Google Advertising. So what are Google Ads and how do they work? Now, I'm assuming most people know or have used Google Ads, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. If you haven't, it's pretty much the same as everything else. You log into Google, you go to AdWords, and you sign up for an account, give them your information, whatever, because you have to give financial information because they're going to be charging you for the ads. So once you have the account, then you're basically in business, and this is how AdWords works. Remember what I said about the stadium with all the people in it? So you want to rise up to the top, and Google will allow you to do that, but they don't allow you to do it for free. Well, it may seem free, but it's not. So how Google Ads work are this. You sign up for like a keyword. So let's take, for example, that I sell books about Oman and Saudi Arabia. So let's take my book, My Year in Oman. Now, Oman, surprisingly, is not a country a lot of people have heard a lot about. So it's pretty cheap to advertise with Oman, because when you look at the search terms, Oman, books about Oman, etc., they're relatively cheap because not a lot of people are searching for Oman. Whereas if you were searching for funny joke book or something like that, then the search there would be a lot more searches for it, and the price would go up. So how does that translate into you advertising on Google? All right, so if you agree to pay more money to Google than anybody else, Google will put your ad at the top of the search page, right? It's that simple. And the only problem is that you are competing with major corporations, whatever. You're competing with people that have deep pockets and big budgets. So some of these placements of ads can, and especially now because of the China virus, some of these ads can really be quite expensive to even run to get into that ranking. All right, so let's go to my Oman example. The searches for Oman, not a whole lot, so I don't have to pay a lot if somebody searches and sees Oman and clicks on it, because that's what this is all about. It's called pay per click for a reason. You can agree to pay any sum that you like, and you don't have to pay a dime unless somebody clicks on your ad. Now, they just might not click on your ad, but we'll talk about that in a second. But you don't have to pay a dime until somebody clicks on your ad. When somebody does click on your ad, then you are charged. So if I have a low, search, a search index for like Oman or books about Oman, then I'm not going to have to pay a lot if somebody clicks on it. If it's a very sought after term and it's a very high competitive search term, like funny book or joke book or something like that, then I'm going now, in order for you to even rank up at the top, you have to spend like 5, 6, 7, who knows how much money. I mean, I don't know how high they go these days, but when I was doing it, some of these AdWords, when I first started doing it, I have to clarify, were like $5. So let's talk about the economics of Google Ads. This is what I call the simple economics of Google Ads, for lack of a better name. I have a book that I sell. Well, let's just use one of my books. Why not, right? So let's look at my book, The Rainier Paradigm. Okay, so Amazon, when they print that book, it's not cheap. So from the time they print it to the time that they send it out, the shipping, etc., my margin on an $18 or $19 book before tax is about $4 if I'm lucky. If I'm lucky, I will get $4 out of that. So let's look at this from a mathematical perspective. If my profit on my book, The Rainier Paradigm, is $4, and I agreed to pay Google $4.19 so I could have my ad placed at the top of the search results, when someone clicks on my ad, I have to pay $4.19. I'm going to lose 19 cents because it's eaten up my profit plus that 19 cents I wanted to use to get into the top search rankings. Now, I will just say this very quickly because I've seen people on YouTube saying this is a strategy. It's a strategy to get your book out there, to get views, to get reviews, etc. If you don't have a large budget, it is definitely not a strategy I recommend because you are no doubt losing money. So, and I often wonder who these people are and what their motivations are for saying, oh, you should try to actually lose money in order to get different results. But the fact of the matter is I have a loss of 19 cents if they buy the book and $4.19 if they don't. So if you have a low profit margin, and this is not taking into account your cost for production, what it costs to run your office, transportation, shipping, etc., a little bit of shipping, but when you take in all this account, $4 is really not that much. So even that is making your Google advertising, even at 30 or 40 cents an ad, which is almost ridiculously low and not really possible, your Google advertising is going to be what I like to call a risky business. So let me explain this to you now. I've been using Google Ads for a few years. I think I started back in 2014. And I can tell you right from the start, and this is going to be very humiliating and it's kind of soul searching, so you can bear with me. And if you're watching this for the first time, if you've never seen Books in Heinessight before, you've never seen me before, this might be a good time to subscribe because you're going to see the potential metamorphosis of me from somebody who is just muddling along trying to sell books to somebody who is getting help from people, who's getting advice, and who's doing everything he can to sell 1 million books so that I can tell you how to sell 1 million books. So what other reason could you have to subscribe than that? So again, I've been doing it for a few years. My results, as I said, are very humbling. All right, I'll just tell you. How many books have I sold from selling or from using Google Ads? Zero. I have sold no books using Google Ads. In every attempt I made, and I mean, it's not like I spent like years, but I tried for months and I spent, quite a few $100s. I spent a few $100s anyway, and I didn't get any sales off Google's. Now, before you run away or go, oh, well, yeah, but that's not going to happen to me, don't say that quite yet. Stick around for the next part. All right, so again, let me reiterate. I advertised for a few months and I did it, kind of off and on whenever I'd get a, crazy idea to go and get myself above the rest of the people in the 50 stadiums. Well, I'd advertise and I would still have the same results. So, as I said, don't run away because there are some reasons why that. why that happened, and actually these are the reasons that you need to stick around for. But the fact of the matter is, I really wasted hundreds of dollars. And the fact is that, and this is kind of my answer in a short form, is that with a low profit margin on books, Google Ads is really, unless you are somehow guaranteed to sell lots and lots of books for a very low click rate, I might add, I do not think that Google Ads is a good idea for selling books. Now, let me just also say that I tried an experiment. And what I did, I also sell merchandise, right? I'm sure a lot of authors, if you haven't, you might want to consider selling merchandise to perpetuate your brand. And I'm going to do a video about that relatively soon on whether or not selling merchandise does help your brand. But right now, I just want to say that I did an experiment where I listed some of my merchandise on Google. And the merchandise I listed was my famous Don't Make Me Go Mamasaurus t-shirt. And let me tell you why you chose a t-shirt against a book. Now, here you go with here's my thinking. People who purchase books, they do so for any number of reasons. People who purchase books do so because they like the topic, they like the title, they like the cover, they like the subject, they like the price, they like the availability, they like it because it's just sitting there. People buy books for any number of reasons. And if one of those reasons is not to their liking, they're not going to purchase the book. That's not true for something like a t-shirt, apparel, etc., etc. Nobody has to sit down and read a t-shirt for 2 or 3 days. It's basically you like the t-shirt and you don't like it, and what determines whether or not you buy the t-shirt is its availability. I mean, can I get it within the next few days because it looks funny? Of course, if it looks funny, you like the design, and of course the price. So just 3 things really make up the decision to buy a t-shirt, hoodie, pair of shoes, etc., etc. Not so with books. So books are very sketchy. And again, I would be very cautious about using Google to advertise to advertise books. All right. All right, now let me take a drink of water here for a second, because I have to be fair. I have to be fair to Google. Now, the first thing I want to say is that Google does not guarantee its sales. Of course, you roll the dice. If somebody buys it, they buy it. If they don't buy it, well, you're just out the money. They don't guarantee your sales, and they never do. And so they're not telling you, yeah, you're going to have any kinds of results. Now, to add to that, there could have been any number of reasons for my negative results advertising on Google. Now, I'm going to, again, this is very humiliating for me, so bear with me. But the facts are the facts. And, we're going to talk about this a lot. And again, this is why I'm doing my 1 million books in 1 year challenge, because I came into this knowing nothing. And as we're going to see, I had to do a lot of soul searching, and I'm going to share with you what I found. But these are some reasons that you can have for having negative sales. And as much as I hate to say it, the number one reason for you having negative sales is there is no interest in your product. So you have to ask the question before you're going to go advertise on Google: are you reasonably comfortable that anybody's going to be interested enough in your product that they're going to, first of all, click on it? And after they've clicked on it and cost you money, is your product so good that they're going to buy it? So those are questions that you have to answer. You can do it through faith, you can do it through research, but you're going to have to do it. All right. Now, again, I have to tell you this. Google is not going to guarantee any of your sales. The only thing that's going to guarantee your sales are the attributes that you put into your product, your brand, your name, and what they say about you. All right. Now, the next thing I want you to understand about why you might have a negative sales on Google Ads is your ad text. Now, ad text it's an art form. You only get so many words. I believe it's like 90 words on one, and then you get a short form kind of thing where you put in 25 words. And so it's really an art form, and you have to put all of this information and your tag words and whatever else, price if you want, into that ad. And in doing so, you also have to make it an attractive ad, an appealing ad that somebody's going to be interested enough to click on. Now, we're going to be spending more than just this podcast and YouTube video talking about how to do ads, because we're going to be talking to different people that do ads, and we're going to be looking at different people that do ads, and how to do catchy ads and descriptions are the biggest thing to selling books. So that's going to be very important. But we're going to be talking about this in much more in depth in many more podcasts in the future. So your ad text could be a problem. The next thing, number 3, and this is probably as important as any of them, are people clicking on your ad, but they're not purchasing your product? Now, can you imagine you've agreed to pay $4, whatever, $3 for an ad, and all these people go and click on your ad? And also, let me tell you, I should have told you this at the first, you set a limit per day, $3, whatever, and or 10. They tell you to advertise more, but to spend more, they always do. And we'll talk about that when we talk to somebody from Amazon or Google. But for right now, you have a daily budget. And so if people are eating up that daily budget and you're not making any sales, you are just losing money. And depending on your daily budget, you could be losing money hand over fist. So if they're not purchasing your product, then what is, and it can only be 2 things. It's your product or your product description are not going, they're not appealing, okay? They're not going to get anybody to click on your ad. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't know how to write. I'm an author, so I find it fairly easy and actually challenging to write Google ads, and fun when you get all of your ads to match exactly the letter count for your allotted letters. So that's fun, challenging, whatever, but a lot of people are not good at it. I would not say I was not good at that. I think I had other problems that we're going to talk about. So let's just go ahead and finish the other things that can happen with you in Google Ads. Now, so people are clicking on your ad, but they're not buying your book. So you got to look at the product, you got to look at the price, and you maybe look at the availability. But number 1, look at the product, because your description attracted them. They liked the topic, so something turned them off. Now, number 4 is what happens when people just don't click on your ad. Now, again, there's a problem with your ad itself, with your text. You didn't write it right. Did you spell all the words right? Is the grammar correct? Because people pick up on that. And if people think that you are some kind of chowderhead or mutton head, then they might think this guy's not really legitimate because they don't know how to spell or use grammar. So you've got to be very careful about that. Then again, there could be a problem with your bid. If people are not clicking on your ad, then you might have too low of a bid. And so it's just not showing up high enough for anybody to even see it, to click on it. And then finally, the problem could be with your price. Maybe the price of your product is just too high. So those are the things that I'm going to be fair to Google about. It might not be Google's fault at all in some cases. And if you find that those are your results, then you need to do some soul searching and really look at your product and ask yourself the tough questions. Is this something that people really want to buy? And sometimes, we kid ourselves and say, yes, it is. And we tell ourselves why, but the proof is in the pudding. And if all of that, you go through it and you say, no, that's not the problem, well, then I guess we're going to move on to our next step. All right, now we're going to shift gears a little bit. We have talked about Google Ads, how you get a Google AdWords account. We have talked about how Google AdWords work, and we've talked about what happens when Google AdWords don't appear to be working for you. And let me again remind you, we'll be talking about this a lot because as an author, you cannot get recognized unless you do some form of advertising. And what I'm doing is skimming the surface. And what we really need to do is get somebody from Google, somebody who is more of an expert on Google Ads, and that can possibly give me information to make my accounts and AdWords work. So for right now, I just want to reiterate my experience, because my experience probably sounds a lot like your experience, with the exception that I probably have published a lot more books than you have, and with not the kind of results that I was expecting to see. So let's start off with, I think we'll go back to about 2019, and I had 6 great books. I had 6 books for sale. Can you believe that? 6 books, and just think, if any one of those books sells $1 million, well, then that's just great for me, Books in Heinessight, and my customers, and of course people that watch and listen to Books in Heinessight. Great for everybody, right? But I'm nowhere near that. In fact, as I said, my sales were in the tank. And remember, we'll talk about it in a second, but I've been publishing for a long time. And by 2019, it looked like my books were just selling less and less. So I began to do some soul searching, as you should always do when you're an author or a businessman, small businessman especially, and your products are not selling. I thought that the question 3, that your product and your product description are not appealing to customers, might be the problem. Now, I said that very quickly, but it's a very large statement. My product, your product, and your product description are not appealing to customers. Now, forget about the product description. Your product, you are selling a book. The book has a cover. The book has a certain number of pages. The book has a spine. It has a description, etc., etc., etc. And just like when people go to make that purchase of your book or not, if one thing goes wrong with that product, then the sale is off. Do you have your formatting correct? Are your page numbers correct? Do you use the right sized font? All of these things you have to know. And so just to publish a book, I'm not going to go into it, but really, you have to have practically a college degree. So I began to go back and say, well, maybe there is something wrong with my product. Now, the first thing that was wrong with my product is this. I'm old school. I thought, well, I'm just going to write my book, I'm going to publish it, and I'm going to forget about it, except I'm going to check my royalties regularly so I know how much money is rolling in. And when that didn't happen, my first reaction was, well, I must have to do something else, something to increase people's awareness of my book. And so for years, I spent off on these different tangents, doing stand-up comedy, running for office, doing whatever I could to bring attention. YouTube channels. I have 4 YouTube channels. I have Books in Heinessight podcast. I did all these things to bring my books out so that people could see them, right? And so I didn't go back in all that time and ask myself if question 3 applied. Is my product appealing to potential customers? So that's what happened. Now, this is what we're going to be talking about in Books in Heinessight, on Books in Heinessight for the next year, is the things that I discovered are very important to publishing. But it's not just about the publishing. You cannot publish and forget like I thought you could do. How did I come to understand what I was doing wrong? Well, the first hint was not selling books. Now, is it because my books are terrible? No, because I had a number of great reviews for all of my books. I had great reviews, and people seemed to like them, and they seemed to like my crazy writing style. So it wasn't about the books themselves. Again, it was not the book, it was a product. Was my product appealing to the customer? All right, but for me, I said, well, no, it doesn't matter the book cover, the description. All that matters is what is in that book. Well, my results showed how wrong I was. In fact, I lost 2 congressional elections until I realized that the money and the success I needed in my elections were never going to happen until my books started selling. Because how can I run as a politician, a congressman, etc., unless I have success in a certain area? So I need to have success selling my books. And that is one thing that I just did not understand until the end of the last congressional election in Washington State, when I ran for the United States House of Representatives against a woman that has $160 million, and she goes down to Hollywood and they write checks for millions of dollars. End of story for everybody else who tries to run against her. But next time, I'm not going to go in without a lot of money, and I'm going to get that money selling books, and I'm going to be a success selling books, so that when I go to tell the voters this is why you should vote for me, it is because I am successful at being a small businessman, at selling books, and you should read what I write, which will help me sell 2 million books. All right. Now, just so that you understand, if you have any more questions about Google, whatever, this Books in Heinessight 1 million books in 1 year challenge is designed to educate you. So we are going to have more conversations about Google Ads. The jury is not completely out yet, okay? I'm just saying what my experience has been. Now, I'm also going to follow that up with this. Now, I really hate to even have to get into this, but because of political events being what they are, this China virus thing, everything has changed. And so we have to be aware of certain things. And if you're going to be a small businessman and an author that needs social media to sell your product, you need to be very well aware of what I'm about to tell you. All right, because of the political situation, you need to be aware of one very simple concept. China is Google. Google is China. What does that mean? That means that whatever is not allowed in China is not allowed on Google. Right now, they will not let you search for President Trump. They will not let you search for police corruption. They will not let you search for elections. So how is this not like China and the Soviet Union? All right. So that's the political statement that I'm going to make that you have to be aware of. And if you think for a second that this doesn't apply to you, well, I wish you luck, because look at China. It applies to everybody. All right, so what you need to know when you go and start advertising on Google and you put your small business and your livelihood on Google, that we all saw as soon as Biden stole the presidency, social media sites began banning conservative politicians like me. I was banned on Facebook. Politicians, their voices, and anyone who speaks up in favor of America, Donald Trump, and our democracy. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Google, even before Donald Trump came around, Google has already banned a number of people, scholars, media people, for comments they made that Google did not agree with. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean they can't upload a YouTube video? Well, it sure does. That means they have no access to put out their information. But that's not it. When Google shuts you off, Google shuts off YouTube, they shut off your Gmail, they shut off Google Docs, they shut off website analytics. In other words, if you put your business on Google and they shut you off, how are you going to communicate with your customers when they do that? Now, with what they're doing right now, there are going to be a huge number of people that are going to be banned from Google. And I'm probably going to get banned myself for saying this. So if you are putting all your eggs in the Google basket, you are playing a very, very dangerous game. Because when they ban you, and they are going to ban people for reasons you might not even know, they might ban you because you know somebody that they don't like. That's China, okay? That's Google, and that's happening right now. So you as a businessman have got to have alternatives. Now, I'm just going to tell you quickly that as far as ads go, whether you advertise on Google, whether you don't advertise on Google, is your choice. If you support Google, knowing this about what they've done to our election and about how they're controlled by China and about how they are now censoring people. For example, I have a Google website, their Google business website. When I ran an ad that said, because of the China virus, I would rather ship my products directly from Amazon or the source than from my own personal office and warehouse. Because I used the term China virus, they wouldn't post my thing. They wouldn't post my post, I guess. So that is how it's going, and it is only going to get worse. So again, we're talking about Google AdWords. I'm sorry that this political situation has come about. When I ran for office, I said we should fund other alternatives so that we're not dependent on this, so that these monsters cannot turn around and attack us, but they have. So you just have to ask your question finally. If you're going to advertise on Google AdWords and risk your business with Google, do you really feel comfortable? And are you going to be safe in your business once they ban you on Google, Facebook, Twitter, and whatever else they have that they ban people on? Because that is what's happening all across the country. So you, as a business person who uses social media, who depends on social media, have got to have alternatives. Whether or not you choose to advertise on Google is going to be your choice. I would certainly like to have somebody from Google come and talk with us. I would, in lieu of that, I will be inviting people to come and talk to us about Google Ads. Now, in the next segment that I do, I'm going to be talking to you about Amazon ads. Now, Amazon ads is almost a completely different animal than Google ads, so you're really going to want to pay attention to that. So, for Books in Hindsight, I wish you guys luck out there. All you authors, all you publishers, all you people that are trying to thrive in this China virus environment. I wish you luck out there. Please subscribe and stay with our videos. And please comment if you have any information that I haven't put out, or if you want to see something or need to see something. I am always willing to learn new information. I'm watching people every day that are like a third of my age, and they're telling me things that I'm going, wow. And so I want you to feel free to subscribe and comment and be a part of the Books in Hindsight community. All right, and the final thing that I want to say here is, and this is probably for more of you people that are maybe up in your 30s or 40s, I published my first book in 2005. And every time I published a book after that, I just used the same programs. I mean, I'm serious. I was using Microsoft Office 2011 on my iMac until I just got a new Mac, which is my new equipment, which I'll be doing another podcast on the tools you need as an author. And it does get a little bit expensive. So all of that stuff is coming up. I thank you for watching Books in Hindsight. I thank you for listening. And again, welcome to the family. Check out Heinessight.com and Books in Hindsight. We've got some great merchandise. And if you like this Encounters USA shirt, I have a Encounters USA podcast, paranormal stuff. We talk about aliens, Bigfoot, and Dogman, and there's a lot going on now that is going to be very interesting. So, for everybody on Books in Hindsight, what do we always say? First of all, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, thanks for leaving comments, and remember, keep on reading.
This has been Books in Hindsight with your host, Matthew Heines. Please join us for our next podcast and look for our archives on iTunes and go to theheinessight.com. That's HEINES site.com for great books by Matthew Heines and other great authors.